Hello, everyone. I'm Anthony, founder at Seed Legals, and love helping founders on Seed Legals not just raise investment, but do all the other things to grow their companies. So when I meet people who know more about me than something, I love to do a podcast or a webinar with them. And the hottest thing right now is, of course, Agentic and OpenClaw, Maltbot, whatever its name is today, after getting their latest cease and desist from copyright lawyers. So OpenClaw it is. So today we're going to talk to an expert, Gus, who I'm going to introduce in a moment. But I'm going to talk for a few minutes on some fun anecdotes in the space. So I'm a bit afraid to connect OpenClaw to my WhatsApp, email, or other things. I mean, I'm meant to be a responsible CEO of a legal tech company. I'm not going to let this crazy stuff loose. So instead, I'm going to learn from Gus. So I'm really looking forward to it. But a few anecdotes. So we have a Seed Legal founder group, and there's the person who's an admin on the group, and he's meant to be sensible and responsible. And some of his recent posts were a bit spammy. And then several people reached out to me saying he's been WhatsApping people directly, which is a no-no. So I messaged him and said, you should not be messaging people directly. He said, I'm so sorry. My OpenClaw bot went rogue, gave it access to WhatsApp, and it's been messaging everyone. So I think we're living in this new age of zero shame that you can excuse all sorts of bad behavior that you would be terribly embarrassed. You just go, oh, it was my AI agent. I'm going to give you one more example, and then I'm going to hand over to Gus, which is there's a founder I know in New York, and I did an event with them, and they do a podcast. So they sent me an email saying, would you like to be on my podcast? I thought, that's great. I like the person, delighted to do it. But his email sounded a bit like it wasn't just sent to me. So I wrote back and said, I'm delighted to be on the podcast. But by the way, did you message other people, or was it just me? Am I special? So he writes back saying, I just wrote back to you. 2 days later, he drops me an email going, I'm so sorry. That was my AI agent. It lied. It wrote to many people, not just you. Anyway, afterwards, his AI agent then sent me a message saying, looking forward to our podcast on Friday the 20th. But Friday is actually an 18th. So anyway, he needs to do some work on his bot. So with that in mind, now we're living in this new world of these agents doing things on your behalf. We are going to hand over to Gus to take it from here. And by the way, if you've got any questions, pop them in the chat. I will try to look at the chat periodically, hop in with things. And in the last 15 minutes, we may bring you on air if you raise your hand later, so that you can go through any things that you've been doing or any questions you've got. So Gus, take it away.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us for this session on OpenClaw and agents in general. So everyone knows my name is Gus Spathis. I'm the founder and CEO of Cogito Group. Cogito Group is a product development and technology consulting firm. We've got deep experience in agents, AI. We've been working on AI since the early days of the company. And I've been involved in AI since the 90s. And probably one of my greatest claims to fame is I was part of the Deep Blue Kasparov team when Gary Kasparov actually lost to Deep Blue and got very upset at all of us way back in 97, I think it was. Um, so great, great to be on this session today. And I guess let's get going. Anthony, should I start the screen share?
Absolutely, go for it.
Fantastic. So, okay. So the things we'd like to cover today are OpenClaw, talk a little bit about Claude Cowork, talk about what agents are and why they're special, and why 2026 has been proclaimed the year of agents. And where are we going with all this stuff? What directions is the future? So we'll cover some fundamentals, what brains are, what agents are, what the big shift is. Then we'll dive into OpenClaw a little bit, talk about how it works, what some things look like, what it can do for you. and then look a little bit further out at other competitors to OpenClaw that are really catching the spotlight these days. And then we'll compare the different offerings and talk about where it's all going and how everyone can use it. So why don't we start off with the fundamentals? So back in 2018, it was a fairly shocking and historic moment when OpenAI released ChatGPT. To give you a sense of how truly groundbreaking that moment was, we were building products with OpenAI ChatGPT, with actually OpenAI GPT. Through the API, we were building some fairly sophisticated AI products. So we knew where OpenAI was with their AI technology. And when they released GPT 3.0, we had been using the 2.0 before that. We were beyond stunned. The difference in quality between 2.0 and 3.0, it was truly like OpenAI had crossed some threshold, and all of a sudden you had true artificial intelligence. And so that was a pivotal moment for the industry, and I think for society as a whole. Now, what did OpenAI release? They released essentially what you could think of as a brain. And as a brain, what can a brain do? It can answer questions. It can think and reason through problems. It can generate text. In fact, the way these AIs work today is essentially predicting the next word in a sequence. That's basically at a fundamental level how they work. It also has just an uncanny ability to understand language, context, and nuance beyond anything that came before it. And that's what you could think of as a brain. Today, we have many, many brains in the world. We have, of course, OpenAI's GPT. ChatGPT is really a chat interface on top of GPT. Of course, I'm sure many have heard of Anthropic, and they have AI called Claude, and they have many variants of Claude. Opus 4.6 is probably the most capable and one of the best programmers in the world. It's very good at writing code. It's very smart. It's a great brain, if you will. Google, not to be outdone, has Gemini, and Gemini is world class. It's really just a fantastic brain. And when I say brain, it's equivalent to model. You may hear the word model. It's the same thing. And of course, not to be outdone, there are many Chinese models that are absolutely incredible. Qwen 3.5 has really the spotlight. Their capabilities are incredible. You may have heard of DeepSeek. DeepSeek was all the rage early last year. Keep an eye out. DeepSeek, the next version of DeepSeek is rumored to be launched any day now, and it's really supposedly something special. Another one that's recently come out that is a lot of fun to play with and super smart, and the cost of it is very reasonable, is Kimi K25. Great model for coding, great general purpose model. And there's another one, Minimax, that's also very good for coding. And these are all different brains. What can a brain do? Well, can open your files on your computer. And in many cases, it can't browse the web for you. Can't really take actions on your behalf. Of course, you could plug in tools for them, and some of them offer you some default set of tools, but that's sort of a special case. The other thing they can't necessarily do is remember your conversations between sessions. So that's another limitation. So how does this differ from an agent? What's the difference between the two? Well, really, an agent is a framework that you can plug a brain into. And in the case of OpenClaw, you can plug just about any brain you want in. You could plug in Opus 4.6, and if you plug in Opus 4.6, it does a fantastic job. You can also plug in Kimi K2.5. I've been using a lot of Kimi K2.5 recently. It's a very cost-effective and very smart model. You can plug in Gemini if you want. You can plug in OpenAI's models as well. So you take that brain, you plug it into this framework. And then the other thing an agent has is it has access to a whole bunch of tools. So it'll have access to potentially your files on your computer. It'll have access to your for example, if you have a Stripe account, you can get a tool that plugs into your Stripe account, and then your agent can interact with your Stripe account. You can plug in your QuickBooks, and then your agent could actually answer questions about QuickBooks. So you can plug in all these various tools, typically called MCPs. Sometimes they're scripts. And then the other thing it can do is it can actually create its own tools if it needs to. So you take a brain and you give it some tools, and then you give it a goal. You give it goals, objectives, and altogether that constitutes an agent. And that's what we call an agent. So an agent has autonomy, it has goals, it has tools, it has a brain, and it does things in a self-directed way.
Gus, if I can hop on quickly with a question,
Sure.
which is you mentioned MCP. So I see talk of MCP servers. Can you tell us about what an MCP server is? And maybe you're going to cover it shortly, but if not, how those might be helpful, and
Sure.
which companies or products or apps have these that people can tap into.
So MCP is model context protocol. And basically what it is it's a tool that you basically plug into your brain, and there's a specific way the brain talks to the tool to figure out what the tool can do. And then when the brain decides it wants to use the tool, it will use the tool based on the description of what it can do. So that's basically an MCP at its most basic level.
Okay, so if I can paraphrase it, let's say
Sure.
I want my AI brain to connect to Stripe to do customer billing and refunds and so on, but my AI brain doesn't know what capabilities Stripe has or what parameters to call. So Stripe would create an MCP which publishes the interface essentially, and by connecting to it, then my AI brain and agent knows how to talk to Stripe. Is that a reasonable summary?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So Stripe has created a wonderful MCP, a model for the rest of the industry. And you plug it into your brain, and when you plug it into the model, it basically says that if you need to look up what the revenues were, you ask me this way. If you need to do something else, you ask me that way. So it lists all the different things it can do and in how to do them, and then the model knows how to do that. And then if you'll ask it a question, then the model will look at the tools and figure out what combination of one or more tool calls it takes to answer your question, and then it will do those behind the scenes. So you can ask it a question that requires some fairly complex manipulation of Stripe, and the brain figures it out, does it, and then gives you the answer.
Okay, thanks.
So that's the and you will see you're seeing MCPs available for many different systems at this point. It is everything from Stripe to QuickBooks to Obsidian if you use Obsidian, or Notion has a great MCP as well. So there's lots of these tools that are being made available. Great. So let's dive a little bit more into OpenClaw. Just starting off with where OpenClaw started. So Peter Steinberger is the engineer who built it, and he was looking for a project. He had successfully sold his company, and then sort of got burned out on technology and stepped away for a while, and then came back and started playing around with lots of different technologies. And he really got excited by what he originally termed as ClaudeBot. And really, it was a personal agent he was playing around with. And he named it ClaudeBot as a pun on Anthropic's Claude. And ClaudeBot and Anthropic's Claude go very well together. It's amazing how well they go together. And he starts getting a lot of traction. So everybody is very excited. At least the developer community around agents is very excited. And what he built was really a personal agent. We'll talk about that in a little bit. And as it starts getting a lot of traction, suddenly Anthropic takes notice of it, and it's like a tidal wave. And Anthropic, in probably one of the strangest marketing moves ever, decides to tell him you're not allowed to call it ClaudeBot because it infringes upon our IP, and forces him to rename it. And he renames it from ClaudeBot to Moltbot, and then he didn't like Moltbot, and then finally he set on the final name, which is now OpenClaw. And OpenClaw, it was named OpenClaw end of January. And by this time, the rate of growth of adoption of OpenClaw is massive, just absolutely massive. And it is selling huge amounts of Anthropic tokens, if you will. So usually most people who are launching OpenClaw would plug it by default into Anthropic's Claude, and it was generating a lot of business for Anthropic. And that's why I said it was interesting marketing moves on Anthropic's part to force them to change the name. So at the end of January, a massive bidding war starts for Peter and for OpenClaw. You have Meta trying to acquire OpenClaw. You have Sam Altman trying to acquire it. I have not heard if Anthropic tried to acquire it, but eventually Sam Altman wins out and acquires OpenClaw. And amazingly enough, the rumors that I've heard are that essentially a 3-month-old project was acquired by OpenAI for anywhere from $1 to $10 billion. So it's incredible to think that a solitary engineer who created a personal agent, and the code is not complicated. It's not complicated from a programming perspective, and that someone could create something that gets valued at that level so quickly. But that's really what happened. And now Peter's over at OpenAI, and we're seeing very rapid iteration of OpenClaw, and it's rapidly improving, which is good because OpenClaw is got a lot of problems, as we'll touch on later. Great. So what is OpenClaw? It's actually a personal AI agent. That's what it was built to be. And it's meant to live on your computer or a Mac Mini. You may have heard that OpenClaw has apparently sold massive amounts of Mac Minis. It's also sold massive amounts of what are called virtual servers. So Hetzner is a provider of virtual servers. There's a whole bunch of providers where you can go and you can basically get a server in the cloud for anywhere from $5 a month on up, depending on how much power you want. And you're also seeing now many of the bigger providers offering this as a service as well. So if you're familiar with Cloudflare, they do a lot of edge caching. They have a version of OpenClaw that runs on Cloudflare. I mentioned earlier about Kimi, which is a model, an AI model out of China. So many people are using OpenClaw with Kimi that the company that makes Kimi, this company called Moonshot, just released a new product called Kimi Claw, which is OpenClaw with Kimi in a box that you can just go sign up and it works perfectly for you. You don't have to sit and install it yourself, which can be a bit challenging if you're not a technical person. So now you've got OpenClaw, and you need an AI. You need to pick a brain for your agents, and you can pick anything from Claude all the way to Kimi. You have to be extremely careful. Your agent likes to use a lot of AI. So what you'll find is that many people decide to use Claude Opus 4.6. It is probably one of the best models to use. But if you use it, you will very quickly find out that you can rack up thousands and thousands of dollars in cost in literally a month. So you need to be extremely cautious if you decide to use Claude. Um, there are other models that are much, much more aggressively priced. I mentioned Kimi. Quen is also fantastic, a fantastically well-priced model. Some of Open's AI's GPT-4o Mini is also another great model that's very reasonably priced. And by reasonably priced, I mean it's going to cost you anywhere from $1 to $2 to $10 a day to run it. Um, so you choose your model, then you basically choose how you want to interact with it. So you can interact with it in a number of different ways. Most people are using something like a Telegram or a WhatsApp. So Telegram, if you don't know, is a chat. It's sort of like a WhatsApp, very similar, and it's widely used, particularly widely used in the more techie circles. WhatsApp is widely used, I think, much more outside the U.S. than inside the U.S. There are countries, for example, Brazil. I work with a number of folks from Brazil. No one uses a telephone anymore, and everything is WhatsApp, which is rather shocking. My favorite way of using OpenClaw is through something called Discord. And if you're a gamer, you probably know Discord. It has grown outside of gaming, and it's just a wonderful real-time communication mechanism. There are tons of communities on it. You could think of it almost like a Reddit, like a distributed Reddit with real-time communication as opposed to sort of the more batch nature of Reddit. And then you can select a whole bunch of skills. So there's many places now. Claw Hub, for example, is a good one, where you can go and find pre-written skills. So let's say you have a smart home. You can get a skill, you can download a skill, plug it into your OpenClaw, and have your OpenClaw all of a sudden able to control your smart home. You can have it control your music. You can have it really just, there are skills to do just about anything. But let me caution you, unless you are a technical person who's gonna take a skill and review the code intimately, I would strongly suggest you not use third-party skills at this point. The last time the skills were examined, there were insane percentage of those skills had malware embedded deep inside them that could potentially leak sensitive information. So for now, I would not download skills unless you know what you're doing, or you can have someone who knows what they're doing review it before you install it. The other thing that you can do with OpenClaw is you can have it create its own tools. You could say, "Hey, I like to process, I like to create proposals in this fashion. I like to first do research on this, then I like to research the company I'm doing the proposal to. I want to find out who the CEO is, and you lay out sort of the workflow you use, and you tell OpenClaw create a workflow to do that. And OpenClaw will literally create all the code that's needed in order to implement your workflow to create a proposal. And it does a fairly good job of that. If you're going to ask it to create scripts, then you want to use one of the more intelligent models. So in that case, that's a good use of Opus 4.6. It's a good use of Kimi, not so good a use of some of the cheaper and smaller models. And there are ways that you can make your OpenClaw communicate with you through voice. They're a little bit laggy because they're translating from speech to text and then from text to speech. So there's a noticeable lag there, but it does work, and you can definitely interact with it through a voice interface. And the other nice thing about OpenClaw is you can create more than one agent, and those agents can work together. So for example, if you want to do research on something, let's say you want to research OpenClaw hosting providers, you can ask your OpenClaw to launch a subagent to do the research. And OpenClaw will launch an agent and then tell that agent to go research OpenClaw hosting providers, and then you could still continue your communication with it and have it do other tasks while that research is being done. Then when that research is done, OpenClaw will say, hey, the research is done. I prepared a file of my findings, or however you wanted it communicated, and it'll let you know. Great. So let's talk a little bit about what adoption has been like for OpenClaw. So on GitHub, it has 250,000 GitHub stars. For those who don't know, GitHub is a library of software that it's where engineers use. They host their software there. They do what's called version control there, and you can go on there, browse all the software all the open source software people are using. And if you like something, you could star it, you could clone it, you could watch the development of it. This is a pretty remarkable statistic that it's gotten this many stars in such a short period of time. And the fact that it got 60,000 stars in 72 hours is just incredible. Let's move on. So let's talk about some specific things you can do with OpenClaw. So just about everybody starts off with their OpenClaw by creating a daily custom brief. So you tell OpenClaw every morning, 7 a.m., give me the weather, give me what's on my calendar, tell me what the top news stories are in my area, tell me what my task list has on it as urgent for today. I like to get a report of the latest things my competitors are doing or companies I'm watching. I like to get the latest stock prices of any of the companies I own, those kinds of things. And it will deliver this as an email or as a message directly in either Telegram or WhatsApp or Discord, whatever mechanism I want. You can also set up a personal CRM, and this is something that I've wanted for the longest time, and now I have it. It works wonderful. Anytime I have an interaction with a person, I meet a lot of people, and I'm not the most I don't have the greatest memory, so I can just quickly dash off a note to OpenClaw saying, hey, just had dinner with John, and we talked about his new idea for X, and it will find John's record and it will update John's record and say had dinner had dinner and discussed this idea. So it's absolutely phenomenal for that. This is great because then you can ask it questions like, when was the last time I had dinner with John? What did we discuss? That kind of thing. Um, and I briefly mentioned about a research bot. This is a wonderful, wonderful use case for it. Every time there's something I need to do research for, I send an email to I can send it a message in Discord, or I can send it an email, or I can use the share sheet in the iPhone and tell it, hey, go research this. And my OpenClaw will launch a research agent to go off and do a deep dive on any specific topic. And I've plugged my research bot into Perplexity, and the two work very nicely together. Um, One really unique thing we've built with OpenClaw is what I'll call the company newspaper. So my company has about 200 engineers working for it, and we do work for many clients. And as you can imagine, we have many meetings per day. Sadly, I can't be in on every meeting. So what I've done is I've basically created a system where all the meeting summaries and the recordings go to my OpenClaw. And then my OpenClaw takes that information, takes a look at the meeting. It determines if it was a good meeting or bad meeting, determines to-dos, does what's called sentiment analysis. And then it creates a daily newspaper for me that says, here's what happened across the entire company, across every meeting. So if one of my clients is in a meeting and they're getting unhappy because of something, it will highlight that and say, hey, this client has an issue about something over here. You may want to look at it. And this is becoming incredibly useful. And we're expanding this to include Slack conversations and many other aspects of the company. And so this is a fantastic use case that I found, and so fantastic that we're actually turning it into an enterprise product for my entire company and all my executives, so they can keep track of it, these kinds of things.
So, hello, Gus. So, is this going to be called CEO bot or Gus bot?
That's a good one.
Your meetings are too unhappy. You are fired. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think just looking at these use cases, which are great, they look at first glance like they're a kind of level one. It's the sort of thing that ChatGPT could do. It's not asking to log into your WhatsApp. It's not doing outbound. It's basically collecting information and giving you some answers. Uh, Tell me how that fits in then to the next step above that, where it starts doing outreach and reaching out on LinkedIn, WhatsApp, and doing customer conversations and remembering things.
Sure. Actually, so for example, this company newspaper, all meeting invites go to an email account, and the agent logs into the email account every 30 minutes. It logs into the account, downloads the latest meeting information. Then another agent takes all those meetings and summarizes them, keeps a running summary. And then at the end of the day, another agent creates a final consolidated summary and then reconnects to the email and sends the email out to everyone. So that's how that works. So it's a multi-step agent. In terms of what you mentioned, you can certainly, and there are many skills that do this, connect your OpenClaw instance to, for example, LinkedIn, and have it monitor LinkedIn conversations, post content for you on LinkedIn, do the same thing with it on X and Instagram and various other platforms. It gets a little bit more complicated in cases like X or Instagram, but there are ways to get it done. You could do things like have it automatically respond to inquiries that come in through your website, for example, through a website form. You can send it a list and have it then try and initiate conversations with those folks in the list. There are many, many different ways you could tackle that.
Okay, so looking at the chat, and by the way, everyone should check out. There's some fantastic people in this webinar who know a ton of stuff, and there's great insight in the chat. Many of us, however, on the call, and that goes for me as well, are sort of newbies to this. We're a bit afraid to set it live. We don't know how much work is needed. It all sounds a little bit techy. Other people should do this. I should just wait until there's a cloud version of it. I don't have to futz around and go off and buy a Mac Mini and stuff like that. So a couple of questions for
Yes.
you. How long did it take to set up some of these things? If it was to be somebody on the call who, knows their way around ChatGPT, maybe does a bit of coding, what's the getting started time for this? And should we get started and jump in now, or should we wait like 2 weeks and there'll be a whole new iteration that makes all of it much easier and potentially safer as well?
Sure, sure. So those are great questions, and sort of so what I would say is if you are a technical person and you're going to spend the time necessary, then you should absolutely dive into OpenClaw and play around with it and see how it works. You're going to initially create a set of, you're going to create a whole bunch of different workflows, and you're going to throw it away. And you're going to do that once or twice before you figure out how you want everything to work. And then you'll sort of bake it and be good with it. And then it'll really help accelerate things. That process will take anywhere from 1 week to 1 month. Depends how much time you devote to it. You security is this is one of the most insecure pieces of software that I've come across. Peter's been focused on other things. He's not focused on security. He's focused on moving this concept forward, and he's done a wonderful job. But unfortunately, it has a lot of security issues. And so, unless you are a technical person, I would strongly advise you not use OpenClaw for anything sensitive. Don't plug it into your personal email. Don't give it access to your personal hard drive. Don't plug in an MCP to QuickBooks or to Stripe. Don't do any of that. So if you're a non-technical person and you want to play with it, great. Get yourself a VPS or subscribe to KimiClaw and play around with it. But don't do anything that you're going to be. Don't put any information in there that you're going to be upset if it's suddenly made public or if someone steals it. If you're a technical person, have at it. It's an incredible achievement. Now that said, there are other alternatives, and we'll look at that in a little bit, that may be more that are better at this stage. I think OpenClaw is probably about 3 to 6 months away from being locked down in such a way that I would say everybody should be using it. It's not quite there yet.
Okay,
Hopefully that answers the question.
That's great. And I have to say, right before this call, I was talking to a Seed Legal's customer saying they use their AI agent for everything. And can they connect their AI agent to Seed Legal's to create safes for investors? Because actually, they just can't be asked doing it themselves. And I was mildly worried. I mean, your agent is sending out safes to investors sounds worrying. But they're using a Strawberry browser, Swedish browser, which is a browser side extension or
Okay.
browser. So you're not installing anything and it's acting as an agent pushing buttons on the website. So I think we're going to see all sorts of implementations that kind of, when I say dumb this down, mean that you can get started without the infrastructure and just use it across a wide range of sites and services. And I think that is interesting. And for me, as someone who's got a busy day, maybe waiting to see these derivative products, but others are going to dive in right now. Okay,
Yes.
so back to you, sir.
Okay. Great. So we talked a little bit about what you can do. I thought it would be good to talk about how it works a little bit so you understand that. So the heart of OpenClaw are three files. The first is what I'll call the heartbeat, and this is every X number of minutes. Usually it's every 30 minutes or every hour. Your OpenClaw wakes up and it reads a file that tells it what to check, and then it does some stuff and goes back to sleep. So this is what makes OpenClaw seem to be alive, is that it wakes up and does stuff, wakes up and does stuff. That's how it moves things forward. There's another file, the soul, and this is what gives it its personality and behavior. And the great thing about the soul file is you can really have it give it a personality. So if you like an agent that's going to talk to you in a very business professional way, you can define that. Or if you like something that's a little bit more edgy, you can define that in the soul file. Um, and then the memory file is where you basically create a map telling your OpenClaw instance where it can find various bits of information. Every time, every time OpenClaw does something, all three files are loaded into memory and are used to accomplish the task you need. So this is how OpenClaw knows where to find records from your personal CRM, for example. This is how OpenClaw knows that, hey, every now and then you like a joke, and it will respond with a joke, that kind of thing. So I thought it would be beneficial to take a look at some of that. So this is an example of an OpenClaw workspace. And in here, you'll see this file heartbeat, you'll see this file memory, and you'll see this file soul. And these are .md files. That's Markdown. Markdown is, if there's something that you should learn, is learn Markdown. It is becoming very useful in the world of AI. AI likes reading Markdown files. It's a lot better than Word files or other files that have lots of other information in them. So let's take a look at Soul, for example. And what you'll see is, so this is the Soul file is who are you? And this is what OpenClaw reads to establish its identity, right? And in my case is it wants it to be, I want it to be helpful, have opinions, be resourceful before asking, earn trust through competence, and remember you're a guest. I want it to never expose any private information, ask before sending anything out externally, always think through replies, and be careful in group chats. And so I name my OpenClaw, my main OpenClaw, Athena. So the vibe is she's the goddess of wisdom, but fun. I like my agent to be sharp, witty, occasionally irreverent, but always respectful. Master of the well-timed quip. Um, uh, can discuss philosophy, then make a dumb joke about it. So this is where you're giving it that sense of personality that they have. And over time, the bot will actually modify its soul as it gets a better sense of what you like or what you don't like. So, for example, if I didn't like mom jokes and it made a mom joke, and I said, don't ever make another mom joke, it would add an entry here saying, you know, master of the well-timed quip, but never mom jokes, that kind of thing.
So for those who don't know Markdown, it's a super simple kind of markup language where instead of, selecting some text and saying bold, you put star star at the beginning and star star at the end, and then it's bold. And italic is underscore underscore, and then there are comments. So this is basically a way of telling the AI system, this is an instruction for you, this is a comment for me, this is just some information, and so on. And the other thing I can say is, your vibe is basically the same as you'd use on a dating profile, right? You're just telling your AI agent the same as you're looking for a partner. Okay,
Very, very
great.
much so, very much so. So one of my favorite uses of OpenClaw was a guy, I think he was out of England actually, who took OpenClaw and wired it up to Tinder. And so it was operating his Tinder profile, swiping left, swiping right, responding and doing all that stuff. And apparently he had great success with the women as a result. I'm sure he spent a lot of time tuning his vibe. So that's the soul file. And just so you get a sense of what the others look like, here's what a heartbeat file looks like. So it's checking its email and doing various other things, doing a check of the CRM. And then this is the memory file. It's pretty straightforward. Here is a layout of the directories where it can find information and do things, various things to look at. So that's basically what it looks like. Just a little bit more about OpenClaw. It's so popular, and we're seeing an entire ecosystem being built around it. Most interestingly, everybody's probably heard of Maltbook. If you haven't, Maltbook was basically you could think of it as a Facebook but for agents, or more like a Reddit for agents. And the idea was you could sign up your OpenClaw to have an account, and then your AI would go and read the posts and post onto it. And it was a social network built AI for AI agents, not for humans. Humans were invited to read but not post. So it was really interesting. You would see agents posting back and forth, and some people, of course, as usual, gamed the system. And you had lots of interesting posts that later on it was found that was actually humans that posted it, impersonating agents. But Moltbook, really fascinating experiment. Such a fascinating experiment that just before I came into this seminar, Facebook announced, Meta announced they purchased Moltbook, and the founders of Moltbook will be joining Meta's AI team. So super interesting. And this is something that I think we should all be on the lookout for in the future. You're going to see the rise of a whole bunch of um, services that are specifically made for agents to interact with. So you can imagine, for example, you need to book a flight on American Airlines, right? Right now, for an agent to book that flight for you is kind of difficult. They have to manipulate a browser, that kind of thing. Um, in the next 6 months, you're going to see every airline is going to have an interface that's going to allow your agent to connect with their agent directly and book that flight without having to go through that human interface. A lot of noise in the human interface, less noise for the agents. They'll be able to do what they need without trying to get through a lot of the human stuff. So that's Moltbook. We spoke about the skills marketplace. It's really wonderful. There's so many fantastic skills. But again, if you're not a technical person and you're not comfortable reading the code and making sure there isn't malware, I would say you should be very cautious about using them. Um, so um, So some other systems, and the one I'd really like everyone to take a close look at, if you're excited by agents, then you should really be looking at Claude Cowork. Claude Cowork is a good middle ground. You are essentially sandboxed, so it's much less likely that you're going to get into trouble. It has access to your local files. You can plug in various MCPs, and you can get a lot of work done. So even though I have two OpenClaw instances, I also have a Claude Cowork account, and I use Claude Cowork fairly extensively. It does a great job at creating proposals, presentations, doing research, and there's a lot less risk there. So that's about it. We can hop to questions if you like, Anthony.
All right, so that was fantastic. I've got inspired actually to create SafeBook, which will just your agent will send safes to all sorts of investors on your
I
behalf and
love
hope
it.
somebody signs. Okay,
Excellent.
all right, maybe you can stop the screen share. If anyone would like to raise their hands and ask any questions, there's great info in the chat, but if anyone would like to ask anything, this is the time. No takers. All right, then it's, oh, wait, we've got Sanjay. Hello, Sanjay. All right, great to see you here. Over to
Uh,
you.
same here, Anthony. Hi, Gus. Amazing intro, and I love how you can explain very complex things to people who may know nothing about coding or whatever else. So really love the way you positioned the whole talk. What are the risks that you have seen materialize using OpenClaw? I know we all heard about the Meta safety person whose emails got eaten up, but what are the other risks that you've seen that we should be watching out for?
There is key leakage, so your API keys could leak. And if you're in there's any number of examples. So if a key that you're using leaks, then all of a sudden you may log into whatever AI model you're using and find you suddenly have an $80,000 bill because someone used your key to do something else. So that's a particularly dangerous thing that can happen. If you're using it on your email passwords may leak, which can result in great danger as well. The best model that I've found is go to Gmail, create a separate email account, and give that to your OpenClaw instance, and sort of manipulate it that way. Same thing with Dropbox. Go to Dropbox, open up a Dropbox account for your agent, and then it can use that, and then it can share it with you. And then if something leaks, it's not quite so damaging.
Great idea. Maybe even set up a different domain so you don't
Yeah,
get your own domain blocked as a spammer if it goes crazy.
absolutely.
But the objection I hear to that is that if you're creating all these brand new personas, then the agents have no context, so they cannot really be useful or productive.
Well, you can forward like we do. We forward email meeting summaries to them to their email box, and that's how they get their context.
Okay.
I
Um,
think what's being said is you wanted to have the context of all of your email, but then not have given it the password. So can you perhaps import your email without giving it your keys, and then that's
yeah,
its training data, and then it uses some other email account for outbound.
you could, but I would strongly suggest that if you do that, you're a technical person that understands that because there is a lot of danger in doing that if you're not super careful.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Sanjay. Okay. Now, I think that Jonathan
Excuse me.
Stone was next.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. No, sorry, Mike, you're up next after that.
Thank you. Super informative. I don't have the time and probably the brain power to do this at my age. When is someone going to start just offering this at 20 or 30 or $50 a month? These pre-built things for people like me who have 25,000 connections, and sometimes I'm trying to make an introduction. I can't even remember like a week ago who said what.
I couldn't agree more, Michael. So I think in the next 3 to 6 months, that problem's going to be solved. And I really think there's no one right now that does it on the contact side. So helping you on the context side, but there will be shortly. Of that, I'm sure. Aside from that, I would say you should have a Claude Cowork account and use it, get comfortable with it, make it the person you talk to the most is Claude in your Claude Cowork, and you're going to reap huge dividends from it.
And I
Thank
think
you.
that's exactly it, which is, we can choose to be early adopters, Or we can wait a few weeks or months because we know that there are 100 companies looking to commoditize this and productize it for everyone else. All
Yeah, and
right.
I think you're wrong by probably at least two orders of magnitude. I think there's like 10,000 companies
Oh,
looking
right. Yeah,
at
yeah.
this now.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, Jonathan, over to you.
Thank you so much, guys. This has been really helpful. I will be honest, and I'm not sure maybe if people want to like use the react buttons to say if this has also happened to them. I had a very frustrating initial experience with OpenClaw. I loaded up like 20 bucks in the account and I was ready to get fired and go. And I basically started by saying, I am not a coder. I'm a like go-to-market sales guy. I have no coding experience. Talk to me like I'm in kindergarten, and walk through the experience. And now I just looked at the screen. I've got $2.17 left and nothing to show for it. It has not been successful in giving me like a WhatsApp QR code. It basically like the user experience has been very clunky, which is why I'm curious if this like Mimi thing that you mentioned is maybe a better workaround. I'm actually excited to take a look at it. But I'm curious, maybe one thing that would be helpful for not just me, but hopefully others of the 120 participants still on the call would be like a recommended sequence. And we don't have to go over it now because I know there's probably a lot more questions and we're over time. But like, what is the order to go in? And if you don't have coding experience, what are some kind of guardrails you need to put on by either leveraging other third-party technologies or just, be mindful that some of the things that OpenClaw spits out at you might be gibberish to somebody with no coding experience?
Yeah, so I mean, I could tell you the real world of OpenClaw is if you're not a technical person, you are going to get very, very frustrated. My OpenClaw instance has committed suicide at least 6 times. So it has a tendency to stop working, particularly when updates are done, and you have no clue why. And trying to recover from that is very difficult if you're not a technical person, and it eats up a lot of tokens. So what I would say is uh, WhatsApp, unfortunately, is the more difficult setup. So if you want to do it easily, Telegram is probably the easiest. Discord
Mm.
is pretty easy as well if you've used Discord at all. Um, so Telegram is what you want to look at. Um, there are some iOS apps that are coming out now that you could also potentially use. But your best friend is Claude Cowork, quite honestly. If you're a go-to-market guy and you need to get work done and you need something that's going to really supercharge your capabilities, Claude Cowork is out of the box. It's going to work for you. It's going to create the best possible proposals. I mean, it's absolutely amazing how good it is.
That sounds like great advice. And of course, the other dilemma is if you put
Thank you, guys.
$20 into the machine and you didn't get happiness from $20, should you give up or should you put $200 and see how that goes? All
Which
right.
is a similar debate that we have when we're in a Las Vegas casino. So it's
Yes,
probably
yeah.
not the
Exactly.
best, thing to think about. And sorry,
So,
can I just ask a quick follow-up? So
sure.
Claude Cowork. So first of all, I like your idea of using Telegram because for me, that given what you said earlier, which kind of gave me cause for pause, you should not use a personal account for email, anything that has deep personal. So I should not set up my personal Gmail to it, it sounds like. And my WhatsApp, nothing has more of my personal information with personal friends than WhatsApp or iMessage for that matter. So maybe would your advice be to use Telegram, which I honestly don't use nearly as much, and it doesn't have nearly as much personal, info on it, or and then Claude Cowork, and what would be the difference between Telegram versus Claude Cowork?
Well, Claude Cowork is basically, you could think of it as Claude. You could think of it as a chatbot with a whole bunch of tools and capabilities already pre-baked that can help you get some expanded capabilities, if you will. You're not going to be able to connect Claude Cowork to Telegram yet. Hopefully, I'm sure they're going to release it at some point in the next couple of weeks where their iOS app will allow you to use a Claude Cowork from an iOS app. And then that would allow you to get there. But if you want to use Telegram, you're going to be using OpenClaw or one of the other similar agentic personal agents.
Basically, a good rule of thumb is if you want to have your conversations with your mother handled by your AI agent, WhatsApp's the go. And if you want to do your Bitcoin then Telegram's the go. All right.